Right, well, I think we've got everyone in the meeting now. So thank you very much for joining this evening's Zoom. I'm Issy and I'm the Co-op Party's events officer. And I'd like to welcome you to this one of a series of Zoom events that we're holding this summer to help you find out a bit more about who the Co-op Party are, what we do, how you can get active, and what support we can give you to help you get the most out of your membership. Tonight's Zoom is about the relationship that the Co-op Party has with our sister party, the Labour Party, and why being a Labour and Co-op makes a real difference. Before I pass on to Jo Fortune, our General Secretary, there's just a few things I want to point out. Tonight's Zoom is being recorded, as many of our members cannot access it live, so we make it available to view on our Co-op Party YouTube channel. So if you don't want your video to be seen, please turn it off and go to audio only. You've been muted. That's just to make the contents of the call clearer, and only those speaking will have sound. Following Jo's talk, we're going to have a question and answer session. So you can put your questions in the chat, or you can raise your virtual hand, or you can email it to events@party.coop. And just one final thing, before we start, I just want to emphasise that the Co-op Party believes that all our cooperative values should be reflected in our actions as well as our policies, and we want all members and all our event participants to feel safe, welcome and respected. So please ensure you abide by that when you're making your contributions today, and I look forward to hearing them. And now you get to hear from my boss, Jo Fortune. Jo's been the Co-op Party's General Secretary for the last 2 years, and we're really lucky to have him leading the staff team and our growing membership, as he's got a wealth of experience of Co-op and Labour politics, having worked for the party since 2010. Over to you, Jo.
Thanks very much, Issy, and I promise I haven't slipped Issy £5 to say that we're doing well within the staff team. But no, thanks very much for making some time to meet with myself today. Look, we're a party who are growing, we're expansive, we're ambitious. We're ambitious for ourselves, but we're also ambitious for our cooperative movement as well. And tonight is about talking a little bit about, as Issy says, about that relationship with our sister party, the Labour Party. I'm going to sort of run through 2 or 3 pieces to that relationship, but also feel free to ask me when I come to the end there, ask me whatever you want as well, an opportunity for yourself to investigate how does it work, or where's the benefit, or how do I do? Perfectly open opportunity to do just that. As Issy says, I've been with the Cooperative Party a bit over 10 years, nearly 12 years. I've done a range of jobs within the party, but it is my huge privilege to be the party's General Secretary now. And it's a party with an illustrious history. And sometimes when we talk about the co-op movement, we start too far back in time. And for me, it's all about what we do looking forward and what our future is, rather necessarily than what our past is. Today I'm going to start a little bit about when the Cooperative Party wasn't in an electoral agreement with the Labour Party, and go from there. There's 2 or 3 things I want to sort of cover today. I want to talk about the basic relationship between the 2 parties. I give you a sense of that, but also maybe sort of talk a little bit about the detail of how that works in practice. There may be some huge amount of acronyms. Some of that's our fault, and some of that will be the Labour Party's fault, but I'll try and keep it as simple as possible. Following that, a little bit, as Issy says, about how could you use that within your own activism to stimulate cooperative action within our sister party, the Labour Party, or indeed in your various roles within the community. So that's sort of where I'll finish. And why it's really important for us to put on these sessions, and this is the 2nd year we've put on these newer members sessions, is because we are growing. We're a party of newer members. You know, 2/3 of our members have been a member for roughly 4 years. It means that we've got to always ensure that you are as briefed and as skilled and as tooled up to be great cooperators and great members of the Cooperative Party as anyone else within our party. You're a hugely important cadre of individual that we have, and we're incredibly lucky to have you within our party, but also here tonight. So look, I used to have a boss who used to say, you know, when they started speaking about the Co-op party, she would say, in 1917. And I would think, oh, good Lord, you know, we shouldn't start any conversation in 1917. It's going to take us 45 minutes to get to the Second World War. There was a time when the Co-operative Party was a standalone party which fielded its own candidates. It did so for about 10 years. Of that order. Now, in 1927, we set up an electoral agreement with the Labour Party. This electoral agreement is called the Cheltenham Agreement. It's only because of where it was signed, largely. The Cheltenham Agreement is almost unique. In British politics. The Labour Party does have one other sister party, which is the SDLP in Northern Ireland. But this electoral agreement was a statement that these two parties, the Co-operative Party and the Labour Party, would work together to have joint candidates. We would work together in communities to ensure that there were Labour and cooperative representatives. Now, that agreement has been iterated over the years. It last updated some 10, 15 years ago, but it is almost, you know, the main principles of it remain the same from 1927 to this day. It means that we are bound to have the joint candidates. Now, what does that mean for us in practice here today is that we have over 1,000 elected representatives across the country. These elected representatives are, are representing the Co-op Party and the cooperative movement at all levels of government, from parish councils through to Westminster, Holyrood, in Cardiff Bay as well. We're incredibly lucky to be represented by over 900 local councillors, Labour and cooperative councillors, and Metro mayors. We're on nearly 60% of all councils across the country now. And last time round, we stood nearly 1,000 candidates. Now, those 1,000 candidates represented nearly 20% of all Labour candidates in 2021. So you can see that we're an expanding force within the Labour movement. We have this unique place of sitting and straddling two social movements, both the Labour Party, the Labour movement, and the cooperative movement as well. And I'm today going to be focusing on the Labour movement, but of course our cooperative movement are more than equal of import and priority to us within the cooperative party as well. So the basic relationship is governed by that agreement, and the basic relationship means that we will not be an affiliate of the Labour Party at a UK-wide level. So unlike other parts of the Labour family which you may be involved in or have come across before, we're not an affiliate organisation. So we're not like a trade union or a socialist society, because we stand candidates. We're fundamentally very different to every other part of that wider Labour family. That the way in which that manifests itself is quite interesting in some ways, for some, but maybe not for all. But that means that we're not represented within the Labour Party's NEC, for example. It means that we don't have some of the relationships which the trade unions and others do within that Labour Party. But it's an incredibly close relationship. It's an incredibly strong relationship, and it's a relationship which is based on shared values and shared history and tradition as well. I don't wish to hark back in history back too far in this talk today, but needless to say that our shared values and principles is what keeps that electoral agreement together. It is the sense of where we've come from, the communities that we seek to serve, the communities that we seek to represent. It is what makes that lasting. Is those shared values. Without those shared values, I dare say that electoral agreement would have been tested and strained much more so over the last 90 plus years than it has done thus far. Now, looking at how does that manifest itself, that sister party relationship, and I say that we're not represented within the Labour Party NEC, but the Co-operative Party is an affiliate to every other level within the Labour Party. So whilst we, right at the top, we say, no, we're sister parties, right the way through the rest of the Labour Party, there are Co-operative Party representatives working to further the aims of the Co-operative Party and the cooperative movement. So if you start from things like constituency Labour parties, every constituency Labour Party around the country, there are somewhere between 1 and 5 Co-operative Party delegates to those CLPs. There are Co-operative Party representatives on things called local government committees, which are arbitrating in and around local government selections and things like discipline and policy manifestos. There are Co-operative Party representatives on all of those as well. We're also represented on regional boards of the Labour Party, so geographically centred regional boards. And also in terms of Scotland and Wales, we're an affiliate to the Welsh Labour Party and the Scottish Labour Party as well, and we are represented on their executive committees. So oddly, despite not being an affiliate, we are a very close sister party. You can't do 100 years of being a sister party without becoming very close, and that is represented within those levels within the Labour Party that I discuss. Now, what does it mean in practice about how do we influence policy? How do we get Co-operative Party ideas and campaigns through? Now, some of it is within those over 1,000 elected representatives that I've talked about. So if you think about, a majority of Metro mayors are Labour and cooperative in England, a majority of PCCs Labour and cooperative across the country. We have a majority, over half of all MSs within Cardiff Bay sit as Labour and cooperative, and the same in Scotland. So, and in Westminster, we're represented by a parliamentary group of nearly 50. Now, that doesn't mean that only 50 members of the Parliamentary Labour Party and beyond are Co-operative Party members. 2/3 of the PLP are members of the Co-operative Party, but it's important to note that only 25 represent the Co-operative Party, and there is a distinction there. So within our parliamentary group, we've got 8 members of the Shadow Cabinet, eight other junior ministers, chair of a public accounts committee, and many other things besides. So clearly that gives us an influence, a way of expressing ourselves and our politics. And I think I just wanted to sort of touch on how these joint candidates became joint. And I think it's really important for ourselves to think about that, because it's one of the main points of being a political party is to get elected representatives around the decision-making tables wherever they may be. So we don't just take we don't go along like some other parts of the Labour family and say, look, we'll have you, and you, as it were. You have to be selected by the Co-operative Party as well as the Labour Party to represent both organisations. That may mean that we might do our selection ahead of Labour Party selections, like we do in Westminster, Scotland, and Wales as well. But also we have to be cognizant of different types of electoral system. In Scotland, you have the list system, regional MSPs, and you have the same in Wales as well. So sometimes we have to sort of augment our selection procedures to sort of fit the election in which our candidates are looking to fight. But the fundamental point is that our members are sovereign within the way in which we do our selections. Our members, where they have that affected area, will have a say over who represents them. It's an incredibly important principle of being a political party, and that's how we do it. So whilst there are, as I say, 2/3 of all Labour MPs members of ours, they're certainly not 2/3 who we therefore just say are Labour and cooperative. It's a much more special relationship than that, to my mind. So there's some aspects of the sort of the ways and routes in is through those elected representatives, but they're formal routes as well. So as I say, we're represented on the Scottish exec and the Welsh executive of the Labour Party. So it's an opportunity for us to make sure that manifestos and the operation of those parts of the Labour Party have a very strong cooperative voice being heard around the table as well. So we'll be working through those bodies to make sure that our policy, our campaigns, our our hopes and organisational desires are heard, but also that will be replicated within all of the LGCs, all of the CLPs. We'll be making sure we're trying to use those relationships and those elected representatives as much as possible to represent our co-operative party and our co-operative movements and needs and campaigns. So there are those features. As an affiliate, we don't attend something called the Clause 5 meeting, where the Labour Party gets together and agrees its manifesto, which means we have to put our work in ahead of that moment. So we'll be working with shadow teams and leadership teams and other parts of the Labour Party to make sure we've got a strong offering to go to general elections and other elections with cooperative policy involved. And just to sort of reflect a little bit about when do you see that? And it's a challenge that we have, you know. So was there any co-op piece within the last set of elections, our most recent, for example? And I would sort of point towards things like in Wales, there was a double the size of employee-owned businesses in Wales. There was a right to food within the programme for government. There was new support for cooperative housing within the Welsh Labour manifesto, and much more besides. Now that was all from us. That's where it comes from. It comes from the Co-operative Party. It comes from co-operators. It comes from me and you. That's where those ideas come from, and now they're in the programme for government in Wales. And similarly in Scotland, obviously with Scottish Labour not in the luxurious position of Welsh Labour in government, but similarly within their manifesto, there was a wide range of cooperative ideals and policies, which again all come from the Co-operative Party. So ideas in and around community wealth building, or again, they had to double the size of the cooperative sector. Macora law was in the Scottish Labour manifesto. Again, these were all the ideas which are coming out from the Co-operative Party, from the cooperative movement more generally as well. And I think that I could do the same over the last 5 general elections, point to different parts of the Labour manifesto and sort of say, look, that's where the Co-operative Party's influence was felt. It's really important that we have that, because in theory, when we've got the joint candidates standing on those platforms, we want to make sure that there's cooperative policy and endeavour happening afterwards as well, because otherwise we're in a place where we're talking about numbers of elected representatives without necessarily seeing what that influence should be, an action should come from it. So that's sort of where it starts to manifest itself, and that's replicated within Andy Burnham's manifesto. Some huge cooperative content within Andy Burnham's manifesto last time round. If you have a look at it, it talks about the Greater Manchester Commission, which again, Cooperative Party inspired and Cooperative Party delivered activity, showing that there are those routes to Labour and cooperative politicians in power who are taking measures to support and grow the UK cooperative movement. And it's that follow through which is really important. So we've got that formal relationship and what it looks like. We've got the detail of what that is in practice, but what is it seeking to deliver? And it's the influence and the promotion and defence of the UK cooperative movement. That's what it's seeking to do. We don't do those things with those relationships just because. We have a point. We have a point to our policy platform. We have a point to what the UK cooperative movement wants. And we utilise those relationships and we utilise that influence in order to deliver the change and the policy and the influence that we must do on behalf of our members, on behalf of our wider UK cooperative movement as well. So there's not just the practice, but also where it manifests itself. So you'll see us talking about some of our big campaigns at the minute, whether that be violence against retail workers. We've started work today on childcare as well, all parts relating back to our cooperative movements, needs and desires. We've been campaigning on issues such as modern slavery, such as a right to food and food injustice over many years. And some of these key campaigns are intrinsically linked to the cooperative movement, often inspired by the cooperative movement, but we're also exporting those much wider into mainstream public policy and beyond. So we'll be using those relationships to ensure that we see the Labour Party take them seriously, start talking about them, making sure that they're backing up what we need within the Co-operative Party and we want from our campaigns, but equally that sister party is also then standing shoulder to shoulder with us in the defence of that cooperative sector. Sometimes it manifests itself within things like a huge ambition for the cooperative movement, double the size of the cooperative sector. Sometimes it's much more narrow pieces, maybe like a community bank in Wales, a huge step forward if we can get it going in Wales, and it again comes from that cooperative family, that idea, but a much narrower piece. So it goes from the macro to the micro, but it's all about seeking to generate and seeking to derive a greater support and greater ability for cooperatives to operate and to grow and to establish. So that's a little bit about how that circle works. Now, what are we looking for with our members? We have joint members, many joint members of Labour and Cooperative. Of course, they're the only parties that you could join within that relationship. But we're also looking to ensure that if you are a joint member, if that's something you are doing with your time and you are involved in your local Labour Party, that you're armed and you're part and parcel of our work. We really need you, and we really want to inspire you, and we want to make sure that you have the materials to go out and be the advocate for the Cooperative Party in the room as well. You know, none of this happens because you know, the world goes round and this happens. We all have to work hugely hard to make sure that we're flying the cooperative flag, and we want to make sure that you've got those tools as well. So you will see, and maybe some of you've got some of these positions already. It'd be interesting through question and discussion whether this is something you'd like to see developed. But if you were a CLP delegate, for example, from the Cooperative Party, this is an area we're working on here and now to make sure that, number one, we've got all the relevant data to know that where you are in the country, what you're interested in the country, making sure that we're giving you the campaigns and the tools to raise at CLPs. Because if we've got delegates to the CLPs, we want to make sure the delegates are also representing what our cooperative campaigns and priorities currently are. So we've got the CLP delegates, the regional boards, the representatives in Scotland and Wales as well. And look, for us, it's making sure that we're communicating effectively with you about those pieces and making sure that you've got timely information, that you've got regular information. I hope that you're getting plenty through from the Co-op Party, you know, over the email. Maybe you're in the WhatsApp group as well already, or maybe you're seeing things online, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram as well. But I want to make sure that you are you've got everything you want for that important work of increasing the cooperative movement and the cooperative party's influence within our sister party, the Labour Party. It's a hugely important relationship to us. It's one by which we derive all of the things that we need for the cooperative movement currently. But I know that there's much more to do, and I want to do it with yourselves as well. So look, there's a whistle-stop tour about what that relationship looks like, but I'm perfectly prepared to talk about any other detail and aspect of it and take on any challenge as well within that relationship, because it's incredibly healthy for us to be looking at that relationship at all points, making sure it's still working for us as well. So Issy, I'll leave it there by way of introduction, and I hope that has been helpful to people on the call, but as I say, I'll be hoping there'll be plenty of discussion and questions to follow. Thanks very much.
Great, thank you, Joe. That was really interesting. Hope everyone else found it too. Do let me know if you've got any questions. There are a couple in the chat. One from Jan. They're holding a stall at their local fair in the square for a local Labour branch. Two of us are also Co-op Party. Are there spare materials we can have in our stall? Absolutely, we can send, if you, I will make a note of that, Jan, on my pad here, and I will get someone to send some stuff over to you.
And you're also...
When is, yeah, do you let me know when that is, Jan?
Jen, you're also asking about what does it mean if you're in a Conservative stronghold area? How is it that you can best engage and work with the co-operative movement and co-operative party there? I think this is a real strength for where we're up to within the co-operative party, to be perfectly honest, in that some of the social justice campaigning that we're doing, whether that be right to food, whether it be violence against retail workers, whether it be in terms of issues of community response and food and justice, these are some of the areas where I've personally seen areas where there's very few Labour and cooperative councillors and Labour councillors, very few Labour and Labour cooperative elected representatives of any type, be able to really influence the work of a council, influence the work of the often Conservative run council. I'm thinking of places in particular like Suffolk and Oxfordshire and some and places in the southwest as well, and they're able to find cross-party support for the issues that we campaign for, because they are issues which, and for example, on modern slavery as well, I think we had 110 local authorities around the country take on our what was like a charter which took them beyond their statutory duties in relation to modern slavery, and many of those councils were not Labour and cooperative run as well. So I think for myself, I think that there is a strong theme of common sense, but also of cooperative values, which can strike a chord across political divides. And it's important for us on behalf of the cooperative movement to be able to take advantage where that's the case. A really recent example was in Westminster 2 weeks ago, in where we had 40 Conservative members of Parliament who signed one of our amendments on violence against retail workers. Now 40, as you may know if you sort of keenly watching the Parliament channel and involved in political discourses, 40 you can win. You can win a vote with 40 Conservative members of Parliament. So we are able to inspire Conservatives and people of other political faith as well. You know, for example, in Scotland, the Scottish National Party have taken on community wealth building in a big way. Now that's come from the cooperative movement. It's come from the cooperative party and others, CLES and some of these other organisations as well. But we are able to inspire across the divide, and I think it's really important for us not to lose heart in those areas, not to lose sense of why we're still committed and why we still get involved in the cooperative party in progressive politics, because I've seen the real difference that you can make. So hopefully, Jen, there's some inspiration or food for thought within some of those areas where you are in a slightly tighter electoral spot than some others as well. So look, there's a sense of it, but is there other aspects in terms of some of the mechanics about becoming Labour and cooperative, or some of the things that you may have seen or heard that you'd like to sort of try and tease out here tonight as well?
Sheila's got a hand up. Sheila, would you like to unmute yourself?
Hi.
Hi there.
You probably won't like what I've got to say.
Don't worry.
It's not about the Co-op Party. I am an elected Labour councillor.
Right.
I've been a county councillor as well. But I joined the Co-operative Party recently, only just before the last elections, because I didn't feel comfortable in the Labour Party as it is at the moment, especially our local CLP, so I won't name them. I would like to work more closely with them, but at the moment the atmosphere is not conducive to that. I'm the secretary of our local fair trade group. I'm taking a motion to council on Monday about being plastic free, so I am trying my best to work in a cooperative manner and to take forward cooperative values. But for instance, it's our CLP AGM this Friday, and the entire slate of people who currently run the CLP have put themselves up. They are all unopposed because the rest of us just cannot be bothered with the fight anymore. We have had enough. And I have to say, when I joined the Cooperative Party, it was such a breath of fresh air, and people were so welcoming. And I've learned so much in the last 3 months, and it really gives me heart that there are people out there who actually want to work in a cooperative manner. So I don't know what you do about it, but I feel very alone. I did feel very alone until I joined the Cooperative Party.
Sheila, thanks for that. And I think it is fair to say that just wherever people start from and meet within the Labour Party currently, that there are challenges to membership, challenges to the way in which the Labour Party environment is currently set at. I hope that improves. They're our sister party. I hope that we can go back to a place where there is more that unites ourselves within this wider Labour family than divides us. I think that we've had some periods of time, and I sort of reflect, I've been doing these political jobs for a little while, and some of the challenge between 2015 through to today in many ways. What we set out really clearly to do is stick to our knitting, right? And I've said that for years. I've used that very phrase for years. Issy will have heard me say that hundreds of times, that we stick to our knitting. In the Co-operative Party, we're here to represent and to defend our UK co-op movement. That's what we're here for. And we will work with anyone who wishes to do that with us. Now, that has seen me work with the full spectrum within the Labour Party, the fullest spectrum that one can draw. And there's people on this call may well know there's a hell of a spectrum knocking around at the minute. But I've worked right across because we can't be seen, and we will not be used for any wider factional game within our sister party and our wider Labour movement. It's just not what we're here for. So we've been quite lucky, is lucky the right word? We've been very determined over the period of time to continue working on cooperative campaigns, on our cooperative party, on strengthening ourselves. You won't see us, or you will not see me in particular, say someone is a Wally or someone else isn't a Wally or whatever. You'll never see that from me online. You won't see it from members of the staff team. It's not something that I think is conducive to the way in which progressive politics should operate, and it's important for us, when we have such a uphill struggle in promoting and growing our cooperative movement, to be sidetracked with anything else. But there has been times where it's been challenging, and I know that it's challenging for many at the minute, but I do firmly believe that better days are ahead as well. So hopefully that's some succor, but we've also got to focus on our game fundamentally. That's what I'm here to do. So hopefully that helps. But yeah, and that's it's a perfectly understandable set of questions to ask in terms of, where do we fit in politically, because it's sort of so black and white within the Labour Party, and so polarised in some ways in the Labour Party at the minute. And within our parliamentary group, we've got some of what people would term, moderates. We've got some people who definitely wouldn't be termed moderates, and it's been really important for me over the years. I've worked with our parliamentary group, and I've done all of our Westminster selections over the last 10 years, and it's really important for me that we do have that spectrum within the Cooperative Party, because there are many routes to cooperation. There are many routes to the cooperative movement, whether that be your credit union, whether it be your allotment, your supporters trust, the way in which you see financial services, the way in which you wish that sport clubs are run, or whether you see an alternative economic vision which is able to surpass that of capitalism. Whichever route it is into the Cooperative Party and cooperation, they're all different. they are all different, and that spectrum needs to be respected in how we are represented as well. So it's not just in terms of the diversity of political thought, but it's in terms of making sure that we are a diverse group of individuals who are seeking to reflect the communities that we look to serve as well. So hopefully that gives a sense of where we fit in, if you like, if indeed we fit in at the minute. What we do, we fit into our UK cooperative movement, and that's the primary importance. Hopefully that helps. Anything else from colleagues? Just sort of scrolling through. Does the cooperative party have a role in areas where traditional trade union structures are all? Okay, yeah. I mean, this is an interesting one, and I haven't touched on the trade unions thus far. I'm happy to do so. I should have said that we have 2 trade unions within membership of the cooperative party. So USDOR are a member of the cooperative party, which is the a retail workers trade union, 350,000 members, as is Community. Community is a member of the cooperative party as well. We do have really good relationships across the British trade union movement, and I've worked personally with Unison, with Unite, with or you name them. We've got good, strong working relationships, and often based on shared campaigning. Like I've done things with CWU in terms of Royal Mail and other things. Now, those are our 2 member unions, but we do have the strength of relationship in the trade union movement, and that does take us into some of those areas that you're talking about there, John. Social care is one of our big areas of policy development, so we have a member-led policy development process every year. It's really important that our members are sovereign over policy, so we run a year-round policy consultation, and it culminates at conference. Social care is that one of those focuses this year, because we in the cooperative movement do have really exciting and interesting approaches to social care. I point yourselves to Calder Valley is a fantastic example of that, but many others as well. There's going to be a slight bit of noise, I'm afraid, colleagues, just as a fire engine goes screaming in front of my open window. You'll have to forgive me that I've opened a window this evening. Issy told me that I couldn't possibly do it, and it's for that reason. Anyway, so we do have really exciting examples of social care being delivered in a cooperative sense around the country. We do work and have worked with Unison in particular on approaches to social care, whether that be routes to in-house, routes to different types of ownership and provision of social care, but also importantly in areas of participatory budgeting and recipient-led procurement as well. So it's not just in terms of the model, but it's also in terms of how you are receiving and delivering social care. So it is an important area for us. And in terms of some of the newer gig areas, we've worked with community in terms of areas like sort of shared spaces, workspaces. We've worked on sort of freelance cooperatives as well in the past. So there are, and we've worked with smaller co-ops who are involved in many new areas of the gig economy and platform development. And we do have an ability to reach in, like some of the trade unions struggle with currently. I think they're getting slightly better. I think Prospect is getting better at it. Community is, and GMB as well. I think that they are starting to be able to organise in some of these workplaces, but what we're able to provide is an ownership structure like nothing else. So you mentioned Uber, but there are taxi cooperatives around the country here and now. There's a great one to look into called Drive in Cardiff. There are ways of taxi drivers organising cooperatively, and there have been for many years. So we do have roots in. We used to have taxi driver co-ops as members of the cooperative party as well, up until very recently. So we are able to provide that sort of ownership structure like no other part of the Labour family is. and those are two of the areas in which we've been able to do it. So hopefully that gives you a sense of it, but we also work with the trade unions in those areas as well. So John, hopefully that gives you a sense of where we are within those two particular areas. I'm just looking through the chat there, and there's some discussion about the CLPs and the way of working with CLPs. And we've got Jan talking about social care here. See the unions is on that. Yeah. It's these are like, there is a social care crisis, Jan. You know, it doesn't won't take me to tell you that, working in the area, there isn't just a funding deficit, there is a hugely broken market, and that's one of the reasons why we want to update something called we've got a care in matters policy document from 2017, and that's why we want to update that as well. There are other exciting cooperative parts of social care. There's a cooperative social care charter being developed. There is a guild of co-operators within social care as well. All of these are cooperative party members active in those areas as well. Two areas I'd sort of pull yourself towards, Jan and John, for further information. Alistair, talking about Healthy Start vouchers. It's an important area of our food justice work. You can go onto our food justice finder, you put in your postcode, it will tell you how many Healthy Start vouchers currently going unclaimed in your area. It also gives you the ability to contact your local council leader. Now, whilst Healthy Start isn't the provision of Healthy Start isn't a council responsibility, what we're seeking to do in that space is to ensure that everyone is doing as much as they can to signpost people to areas where you can get, you know, for certain parts of community, fresh, good, healthy food. We've seen Marcus Rashford and many others join with us in this area of Healthy Start over the years, and the cooperative group as well. It's a hugely important part of our campaign, and it's a place where we've got 2 or 3 pieces scheduled for the summer on as well. So I'm working with colleagues on some of our new Healthy Start offering over the next few weeks as well. So I would sort of point yourselves towards some of these campaigns, because we are in a place now where we are able to sort of link that online experience to activism, to give you the tool, to give you the release, to the letter even, or the communication with the relevant minister, etc., to really sort of hammer home what we're trying to achieve. And John, Alistair within the chat talking about Healthy Start, retail violence as well. Retail staff is a straightforward one. There's, you know, why would the Cooperative Party campaign for on violence against retail staff? Well, 500 members of our cooperative movement go to work and get assaulted every day. Now, if there's another 500 people going to work and getting assaulted within our cooperative movement, we'll make that a priority as well. It's an absolute shocking start. It's a shocking situation for our friends and family and our fellow colleagues within the cooperative movement who have to put up with it, and they shouldn't. So there's that sort of strong thread of, why do we campaign in these areas? Because it means something to us. These aren't campaign areas that we just select and run with. They often reflect the very real priorities of people working in the UK co-op movement today. Look, there's a few other pieces coming through in the chat, but is there anyone else who would like to raise any questions and queries about membership and where the party is up to within this wider Labour Party relationship here today as well? I'm keen to make sure that if you have got a question, feel free to ask it, or contribution as well. I want to make sure that you are heard. Looks like I've talked everyone here into a standstill.
Covered everything now. So.
I've talked everyone into a standstill, so forgive me for that. But hopefully there is, what I've talked about today gives you that sense of what that relationship looks like. how it works for us, how we seek to maximise the opportunities that it's given. I would say if there were other questions, queries, making sure that you are able to email mail@party.coop or myself or Issy, and making sure that we are the sort of party where we are responsive to your questions and to your queries as well. Dave, at the death, Dave, what's the stance of the party within the welfare state in relation to the welfare state in relation to the Labour Party and housing potentially? So we, in terms of housing, we campaign in a range of areas, whether that's the private rented sector. We've got plenty of materials and campaign materials on how councillors or local communities can come together and to campaign against the worst successes of the private rented sector. We also work in areas of community land trust, cooperative housing. We're very active in those debates and in those policy areas. These are some of the big pieces for our cooperative movement in housing, but yeah, there's many other pieces as well. Just on welfare, we'll be publishing our work with our shadow DWP, Shadow Secretary of State Jonathan Reynolds, who's a Labour and cooperative elected representative. We'll be publishing video content and other pieces tomorrow on the outrageous cut to universal credit, the £20 uplift. So just one aspect of how we work with our elected representatives in areas of welfare as well. We've got a question here just in the chat as well, is just in terms of how do we encourage Labour and cooperative Labour Party candidates to stand on the cooperative ticket as well. Well, really straightforward. There are online training programs to point people to. So there's the cooperative candidate development program for local government. That is open now. There's 300 people on it. It has training sessions every week. That's a really great place for Labour Party elected representatives to start their journey into becoming Labour and cooperative. There is also a candidate hub where you can find out all the information for becoming a cooperative candidate, and also online application process as well. It starts at our website, and potentially if Issy is able to pull those together, we'll pop those into the chat. If not, we'll circulate after. In terms of Westminster, our Westminster panel is open. So we are interviewing for our next group of great cooperative members of Parliament, Westminster members of Parliament. We have training programme, a new training programme starting and in place within that Westminster panel as well. So there's opportunities for new candidates to come forward in that area. And I think more than anything, if people are new to the cooperative party, what I want them to do is I want them to work with us, to campaign with us, to get involved in our issues first and foremost. And I think it's in order for us to do that, we need to be able to communicate with them. We need them to be able to receive our campaign update, the latest thing that we're talking about that day. So as outside of the candidate development programs, the training, the online resource that we have, there are party staff to ring. So there are staff on the website whose job it is to work with new candidates, to develop new cooperative elected representatives. So I'll point them towards that. And candidate members of staff like Rob Bates, who's our political and parliamentary officer, or colleagues Gareth Dowling, who works on candidate development within local government as well, and many others. So on top of the staff, I would also say, look, get in touch with them and make sure that they are receiving cooperative party campaigns and updates. And what I want to see is themselves getting involved, because I want many more people to be involved within the cooperative party and the cooperative movement. And there's some of the great places to do it. I see that Issy's been able to put in some of the links into the chat as well. There is just a further one in terms of starting out for safer parking for wheelchair travelling people, wheelchair bound people potentially in the chat. We have a range of equality networks, member-led equality networks within the party. So whilst that isn't to say that these are the only routes in which equalities are spoken about within the party, it's a really good way of starting that journey and those sorts of campaigns which Jan is pointing to here in the chat. I can see they are again all up on the website. We have steering committees and elections to our steering committees. They meet regularly online. They have events at conference, but they have events around through the year as well. So they're always looking for new ideas, new campaigns, new things for us to pick up within the wider Co-operative Party as well. So Jan, there's for this particular campaign, it's called the Disability Forum. Its secretary details will be up on the website as well, and potentially again, if Issy is able just to go to the networks page, you may be able to find it. If not, Jan, if you Google the Disability Forum and the Co-operative Party, the details will come up as well. So hopefully that helps on that question as well. Look, I think I've covered all of the pieces within the chat, and I've covered the ground that I wanted to cover within the talk. I hope and I'll do one last call for contributions before I wind up for tonight. And it looks like I've sated the appetite for tonight. But look, it's been fantastic being able to speak to you tonight. I really value these opportunities to speak to new members. I really value the opportunity to engage and to sort of find out a little bit about what's important to yourselves, but also make sure that you're as equipped as some of the older hands as well. We're here, the staff team are here in order to make sure that your experience of being in the Co-operative Party is productive and effective to bring Co-operative change to the community that you live in. So I really appreciate your time and appreciate being a member of the Co-operative Party. Okay, I'll see you soon. Thanks very much, everyone. Bye-bye.